Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, February 24th. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. We have a big show, lots of basketball news from over the weekend to get into. Joel Embiid, Greg Popovich, both guys have suffered some setbacks based on their current situations. We'll talk about what their future is in the NBA as coaches, as players, and more. We'll also talk about Matt Stafford, the big story out of the NFL right now. The Rams gave him permission to seek a trade. Is he going to get traded? Are the Rams going to move on? And where might Matt Stafford end up if they do decide to move on from him? Then we'll continue our series. We're going to go over what the NFL offseason might look like for the San Francisco 49ers, as well as what the MLB season might look like for the Seattle Mariners. As spring training is here, games are being played, baseball is back. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, February 24th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the first question. The big one that I have for today is around Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, one of the best players in the world right now. One of the top 5 players in the NBA, unquestionably. One of the best big men currently playing the game. He also won an MVP not too recently, but with the news coming out yesterday and over the weekend that he might need surgery on his knee, that he's getting held out of a game yet again because he's injured yet again, the real question becomes how much longer does he drag this out? Obviously, probably going to shut him down for the season. The Philadelphia 76ers, not a very good team this year. They were attempting to make a run in the playoffs last year. Joel Embiid get hurt down the stretch of the season, isn't able to play at 100% in the playoffs, right? Then they go out and they add to Tyrese Maxey, who was having a breakout year last season. They go out and they add Paul George. Paul George, injuries, falls off a cliff. Joel Embiid continues to be plagued by injuries from the beginning of the season, but this is something that has not just plagued him recently, but really his entire career. He's got a laundry list of injuries, and for a big man, the places that he's getting injured are very concerning for his longevity. Joel Embiid is just 30 years old. Joel Embiid has played a lot of basketball, but he's also missed a lot of basketball due to injury. Over his career, he's missed over 400 games due to injury. He's only played in 53% of the games he's supposed to play in. He's never played more than 70 games in a single season, never getting over 68, only getting over that 65 mark that the NBA put for awards twice. Once when he won his MVP, and once the season before when he got to 68. 68 and 66 games are the most. He barely ever gets over 60 games. 65 just twice. And that's the mark that the NBA has set for playing what a full season would be. Never gotten over 70. But let's look down his laundry list of injuries real quick, because Joel Embiid has been plagued with injuries during college, and this is just from his pro career. Before he was drafted, he was dealing with a stress fracture in his right foot. That forced him to miss his entire rookie season of 2014. Then he was getting ready to come back. In June of 2015, news breaks that he re-broke the same foot, the navicular bone stress fracture in his right foot, and he's out for yet another year. Now, foot injuries for big men are particularly scary, right? You talk about a guy like, for instance, a Zion Williamson, who's had to deal with injuries as a big guy, right? That has some to do with his weight, but as a 7-footer, Joel Embiid has to deal with a lot of those same issues. You're putting a lot of pressure on your feet when you're walking, when you're running, when you're jumping, when you're landing, especially in basketball, when you're being as explosive as Joel Embiid is. It's very dangerous for a big man to continue to play on injured legs, injured feet, injured knees. And that's why you see them get hurt so much, because they keep getting re-aggravated. They keep getting hurt again in different places. But that was just his foot. In January of 2017, that's when the knee issues began. And that's been the real one that's really plagued him his entire career. Just 30 games into his rookie season, his real rookie season in January of 2017, he falls and aggravates his knee. It's swelling in the knee. Later, he sits out a couple games, comes back, drops 32 points in one more game, and then they find that what they thought was a minor meniscus tear was actually quite a bit larger than they thought. So he's torn his meniscus for the first time in his career. Remember that, because he tears his meniscus, at least partially, a whole lot throughout the rest of his career. In January in 2017, he tears his meniscus for the first time, only playing 31 games in his real rookie season. That after missing his first 2 seasons after being drafted because of a broken bone in his right foot. In 2018, it doesn't have to do with his legs, but he did get a concussion when he collided with Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz, rookie at the time, he had a concussion and he fractured his left orbital bone. That's one eye bone hurt. In May 2021, a couple years later, he partially tears his meniscus again. This causes him to miss a couple of games, and then he gets it fixed in the offseason. In April of 2022, he tears a ligament in his thumb, requiring surgery in the offseason. He only missed a couple games because of this, but that's another part of the body that's been injured. In April of 2022, he takes an elbow to the face. That results in another concussion. That's 2 concussions and a right orbital bone fracture. Now, he's fractured both of his orbital bones in his face. That is not good, right? And then we get back to the meniscuses. In January of last year, almost a year ago, a torn lateral meniscus needs surgery. He comes back, plays a little bit in the playoffs, then he gets that surgery. Now, this is one that I believe is still bothering him today. In October of last year, October 2024, Joel Embiid goes out there, and he was held out of preseason. He came out and he said, I don't think I'm ever going to play back-to-backs again. That sounds like a guy that's really suffered a lot of big injuries in his career, and it's understandable, right? Joel Embiid is a guy that has dealt with a lot. We've gone through a laundry list of injuries so far. We've talked about multiple meniscus tears, fracturing both of his orbital bones, multiple concussions. These are just multiple broken bones in his foot, and that's only in his pro career. That's not including the injuries that he got in college, right? And he did deal with a bunch of injuries in college, despite going number 3 overall. In October of 2024, a knee injury holds him out all of the preseason and a little bit of the beginning of the year. And he plays a couple games. He's played 16 games this season. He's gone in and out of the lineup due to injuries. In January of this year, about a month ago, there's a foot sprain that causes him to miss a couple of games. That is switched later on the injury report to a left knee injury. And that's where we get to now. Now, over the weekend, it comes out that knee injury might require surgery, and he's consulting doctors. So, for those who are keeping track, his stats for injuries so far. That's 2 concussions, 2 broken bones in his feet, 3 meniscus injuries, 3 at least partially torn meniscuses, 2 orbital bone fractures, and a torn ligament in the thumb. This is a guy that is playing elite basketball right now, right? This is a guy that is undoubtedly one of the best in the NBA. But the more and more injuries he sustains, the harder it's going to be for the 76ers to justify paying him that massive contract they gave him, right? The harder it's going to be for when his new contract comes around for them to say you're still worth that money, because he just doesn't play anymore, and that's through no fault of his own. I'm not here to say that a player, is only as good as their injury history, right? Because he's an amazing player. But there does come a point where you need to look at what he's done in his career, what his career looks like in the future due to his continuing inavailability, his continuing inability to stay healthy on the court, and you have to think about maybe it's time for him to hang it up. Joel Embiid would retire at the top of his game, and he's accomplished amazing things. He's won an Olympic gold medal. He's won that MVP that he got a couple years back. Rookie of the Year in a season where he only played 31 games. But he's not going to be up for any more awards. And the way that the Sixers are going, especially this season, it makes sense to shut him down and get ready for the next year's coming. He'll play until the end of his contract, but the real question does come. Should Joel at least consider retirement? And I think there is a real thought there. And I think there's a real idea that he should retire, at least in my mind. I'm not saying retire now, but at the end of the contract, he's not going to get this massive money, I don't think. As good as he is, it's hard to pay a player that much when you don't know if he's going to be available for even a quarter of the season. And that's really tough to do for a 76ers team that's been so close, yet so far unable to get past that second round in the NBA playoffs. I think Joel Embiid might be one of those stories. Not quite as bad as some of the other ones in the past, but be one of those players that his career got cut short because of injury. And unfortunately, I think it's going to start to catch up to him right about now. So the question, I think he should really consider it. Should he retire right now? No. Let him keep playing at least the end of this contract. But I think there does need to start to be a discussion around Joel Embiid and how much longer he really does have in the NBA. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. How much longer do you think Joel Embiid has in the NBA? Do you think he'll get another massive contract? How risky is it to give a guy like this another massive contract? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Greg Popovich. One of the greatest coaches in the history of the NBA has suffered a setback. He had a stroke earlier this season in November. He is not going to return for the rest of the year. And much like Joel Embiid, we asked the question, should he retire? And what does his legacy look like right now if he were to never return to coaching again? We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.